All right, I'm take twoing this. I think there's something that happens where and I don't know exactly what the, like, trigger is with it that, um, if I don't reboot the computer, the microphone doesn't work, but it's working now. So thank you, Kristen, even though you're not on here, for pointing out that there was no audio in, my first attempt. So here we are. We're back. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, thank you. I think that's you. So there's like a little one that just showed up. So thanks. I'm back. All right. So for today, um I'm going to read to you Looking and Being Seen out of the Sixth Hub. And in the Sixth Hub, this is, like any of these, there's a very personalized experience in what you find when you look. There's this framework and there's a universality to it in that we have, with outliers, of course, but there's kind of a process, or sort of stepwise function in terms of the evolution of a nervous system. And of course, there are exceptions. Of course, there are things that fall outside. But one of the things that I want to encourage in all of this is just to not to not be looking at this as like the final, like, unveiling kind of thing. I mean, anything can inadvertently just become another, like, crusty, like, tool for indoctrination. Like, anything can become another system for rationalizing, like, an old, honestly, rationalizing division. Anything. This could become that. I mean, like, look at what happened with Jesus. Like, anything can be used. So not that this in and of itself, like, the Parinama method is, like, the thing. It's you're the thing. And that Parinama, using it as a tool to to mend the division and to, like, begin to have a richer experience in terms of living, like, in this enlivened life. So in this chapter, and so I, like, wrote the book, and I still am finding in it, like, I'm having a, like a really, like, my dedication to this cycle, which was, I didn't really expect this, but it doesn't really matter. Whether I expected it or not. But this cycle is leading to, like, extraordinary openings. And I find things in it that I didn't fully understand before, and now I understand more. So, that kind of the notion, I think I talked about it maybe in the last or the second to last video, which is that the way this is actually structured is kind of like in a sort of Nautilus cycle with it, or, kind of circular, where it kind of can just begin again. Um, Yeah. So, okay. So Six Hub, here we are. So Six Hub you know, is about, so for this is like looking and being seen. And in being seen, so Miss Honey, who is one of just my favorite, I don't even know what you would call them, just because I'm deciding to give credit, said, that you attract what you show. And I think that this is something that when we are in the development of the Sixth Hub, this reconciliation, which is that it's finding the identity, finding the expression that actually transmits to the world so that we connect with the people. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It just occurred, just sort of the thought arose rather that, the interconnectedness with the fourth hub, which is belonging, can actually hold us back to belonging to notions of safety, like familial notions and things that are like a lot more subconscious. And we find ourselves, especially in like the social ages with this, depending on the circumstances, that like even social safety, that we wind up sort of putting a clamp on the full expression of ourselves. And then as a result of that, it's the people that we really feel that we can connect with don't see us, right? So that's the thing, with reclamation of this hub in later years, is this awareness of this aspect of expression. I mean, sometimes you see people who are, like and like what we like. Also, there's this thing about like the midlife crisis being in the later cycles, how this erupts, which is the expression of things that weren't allowed to exist in childhood, and it's usually looked at with disdain, like it's like arrested development. But in the context of this, it's not. So you attract what you show. So I'm going to read. So looking is so absolute certainty, which we'll talk about more in the seventh hub, is a trap that cuts off exploration and leaves us stuck in a time that's already passed. So there's a freshness and wonder and curiosity and experiencing a moment as if it's brand new, because it is. Yeah. Curiosity is a field we enter, an acknowledgement that taking interest offers limitless possibility in any given moment. So people tend to dress like and or listen to music from a time period when they stopped being curious, and to retell the tales. Folks who repeat stories can lack awareness of their audience and get stuck in the past. A side effect of this becomes fear of both the unfamiliar and the new, sometimes manifesting as fear of teenagers and young adults. So without curiosity, they seem terrifying. With curiosity, they're fascinating. So this is something to, it's, yeah, I mean, there's kind of a normalization of somebody, of seeing somebody, where like sort of dressed in the time period of their adolescence or early adulthood, and considering that to be like normal. Like there's also a thing which is like that aging is normal, that it's like normal that you would become rigid, that you get health problems. Like it's just sort of like these are normal things. And so like it's, like this is, the sixth hub has like the ability to have this kind of evolving aspect of identity, but also there's a stuckness that can happen, which is, in that fourth hub, when we're really connected, when we're like, when belonging is holding us back from being able to express ourselves and holding us back from belonging with like kind of people who are more aligned with who we are and our integrity. So yeah, and teenagers. You see people are, like, really afraid of them, really afraid of, like, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like, people that are, like, yeah, and there's nothing to be afraid of, like, I mean, they might not like you, but who gives a shit if you actually like, I went to a concert. A friend of mine took me to a Youngblood concert, which is, like, literally, like, Gen Z. I think it's Gen Z. I think it's Gen Z. And it's funny because it was like the energy of it was gorgeous, first of all, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. But there definitely was like narc energy, like about me, because I was like clearly like old, relative to them. Um, and it was, like, really delightful. It was really nice to be in that space and just see, like, all the queer delight of the kids and just that kind of period of time. And to be like, we were on the floor with there's like and one thing I wanna actually, we're on the floor and there was, actually, I'll tell this quick story, which is that, um, when I was younger and they were like, "We're gonna f" there was sort of like the notion of forming a pit, it would be like, shit, like, you'd see all the sort of, like, terror like, anger-eyed lunatics stomping in their Doc Martens in the direction. They were just, like, there to do damage, and this pit was, like, really loving, like, they created this mosh pit where they were all just using it to, like, let out energy. I could almost cry. It was like, "Holy shit." Like, because I was scared of it at first, like, when it started to form, I was like, "Oh, this is this, like, violent chaos," and it was like this thing where there's, like, new things arising. And it's like when we stay stuck and afraid of it, it's like we don't see that it's beautiful. I mean, did they love were they like, "Hi, no." I mean, it just, it's kinda like whatever. That's not, and that I think is the thing that scares people is that especially if they have, um, their own unresolved things about being, like, singled out or feeling, like, kinda awkward and, like, those ages, that part is also just activated, and it's kinda like, let me stay away from feeling like high school kids don't like me. So, like but anyway, so that was probably more time on that than necessary. But yeah. It was funny because I was, like, super delighted, and also, if you knew me when I was younger, I was, like, definitely in that kind of, like, vibe. So, it was like, I was really, like, kinda like, "Ooh, this is really nice." And, I mean, it just you have to listen, you really gotta accept the fact that, like, your experience is your experience, like, or you don't have to, but it's a good idea to consider it. Okay, okay, I'll keep reading. So, the extent to which we create reality is affected by the filters we look through and the intensity with which we look. So, in this hub, we reclaim our eyes and become aware of the filters on our perception. So we can choose to remove the filters that no longer serve us and consciously evaluate the interference of our biases. So children sometimes ask, "How do I know what I call red is the same red that you see?" That's a question that can't really be answered. The fact is that we can never know. There's no objective reality. What we see is influenced by our programming, level of development, and adaptations from lower hubs in addition to our innate inclinations. So, I mean, back to the thing, it's kind of not uncommon for kids at like pretty young ages to contemplate this pretty profound notion of perception is to say, like, how do I know that this is a red lighter? How do I know that, like, what I'm seeing is what the same red? And the thing is, you can look at this from, the wavelength of the color. You could say, listen, there's just some practical realities here. You can look at it from the physiological rods and cones and, like there's, from the science, but at the end of that inquiry is like what is being perceived. And this is where we get into kind of this place where like science has a place, but also is like lacks definitive answers, you know? I mean, it's fair enough to be like, look, we all meet at a place where we call this red. That's like that's good enough. It's kind of what we're doing probably on a certain level. So we're all like meeting at a place where we have like sort of agreed upon notions and like that actually it is. It's like that is it. That is it. We're meeting at a place that we all agree this is red, but it's like what that means and what you see in the context, perception, whatever is like as many as many pairs of eyes that look at that will have a a different experience with it. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Moving right along here. So being seen. So anyone who has ever felt invisible understands just how destructive this can be to a psyche. We get overlooked for promotion, our raised hand is ignored in a classroom, or we work at a service job where customers look through us, not at us. Paying attention to the human beings around us can be a wake up call for anyone who sees retail workers, support staff, cleaners, delivery, or service people as machines that only perform functions. Looking just briefly into the eyes of someone we may typically overlook can be the jolt that activates our compassion and connection, and it begins to shake the foundation of biases that limit the full capacity of our humanity. Whew, well, I didn't expect that. It's a little different than it seems like it's still talking about looking. Yeah. Yeah, it's still talking about looking, so, editorial note on that. So okay, yeah, but the thing is, so looking, and that to me is talking about how looking and how we look and see others can unlock deeper aspects of our humanity and our connection. Because when we can see another person, even for a moment, we connect to something that is like that's kind of in this space that's beyond. There's sort of this recognition. You wanna be careful. I mean, this is a boundary where, it's like what we allow in, how we invade other people, but just to become conscientious of it. One thing, because I don't think it's gonna we're moving right on to themes. Hey, Kristen. Um, is talking about being seen in this hub, which is back to like I think in an earlier reading, I talked about this kind of like the twilight notion of like Bella Swan being simultaneously completely like, sort of like shy, unremarkable, and then also like so extraordinarily like recognizable by like her person. And there's so that like actually just saying that gives a whole other sort of like notion to that, which has to do with this. I don't know if I'm gonna have the ability to talk about this today. I don't feel it like it's super in me right now, but, like that fantasy of being able to hide and still be seen, that's it. It's kind of this thing where it's like to simultaneously be able to be safe and be kind of like not stand out, but also like stand out in this extraordinary way. So that I think that fantasy is sort of relieves us of the responsibility of showing who we are, that we attract what we show. It relieves us of so that's part I think part of the deliciousness of that fantasy is that you wouldn't have to, um, take the risk of showing yourself, and you would still be seen in this very special, particular way. So it's almost like being able to be like fully seen, understood, and known without like having to invest in vulnerability. So just a thought there. So anyway, so I think that's it. One note I want to make is that I listened to a podcast this morning that I thought was really fantastic. The podcast is called You're Wrong About, and the episode was the obesity epidemic. And it was great. I'm going to show you where it is if I can find it. Maybe it's too deep. It happened, yeah. Geez. I'll show you what it looks like. What the picture looks like. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I've got. You know? Trying to think. Yeah, it's like I have other thoughts that are coming up, but they don't have the kite quality. They don't have enough juice to fly. So I guess that's it. That's a wrap for today. So next time, oh how fun. We are going to get into the themes of this hub, which I'll show you here. Oop. We're going to get into myth and meaning, and also probably not the next time. We'll probably just do myth and meaning. But we're going to talk about rite of passage, the hero's journey, and my very special diagram that was the last. I just realized this. This was the last illustration that I made. The emotion wheel in chapter 5, the second hub, and Hero's Journey were the last 2 illustrations. They were like last. Like they were so, I don't know, they felt really daunting for whatever reason. And then like right in the 11th hour, I made them. So it's kind of cute to see it. It's okay. It's like, all right. It could be better, probably. That's why I'll get the job done for our reading. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.